Alright, ingredients for this Cowboy compound butter. We have coconut butter, Dijon mustard, prepared horseradish. I'm putting some homemade hot sauce in mine, but you could do dry chili flakes. Got some green onions. You could use chives if you want to. A little bit of parsley, a little bit of fresh thyme, fresh garlic, lemon, cayenne pepper, and paprika.
So using fresh herbs in a compound butter is almost an absolute must. They have such beautiful natural oils in them that really flavor the butter just beautifully. So I'm picking 4 stems worth of thyme right off the stem and just giving the thyme leaves a rough chop.
Do make sure to save your herb stems to flavor your soups. You can flavor your stocks.
I place the herb stems in a glass dish and just dry them out on top of my refrigerator. They'll stay good for months. 1 bunch of flat leaf parsley. I'm gonna roll up the leaves nice and tight to a ball and just run the knife through it just once. I mean, all these ingredients are gonna get zapped up into the food processor eventually, so I'm not gonna really hammer the herbs right now. Just a rough chop is more than adequate. Put them in a dish, set them aside. 2 cloves of garlic. Not much prep work is gonna happen to the garlic. Just give them a light smash, remove the outer paper layer, and cut that root end off. 3 stems worth of green onion, give them a rough chop as well. Most recipes on the Cowboy butter I found had chives. When I went to look for chives, the store did not have any, so green onion is a perfect substitute. All ingredients get placed in a food processor. If you don't have one, finely chop all your ingredients and mix them in a mixing bowl. After the green onions go in, 1 tablespoon white distilled vinegar, drop in the parsley and the thyme, 2 teaspoons paprika, 1 tablespoon hot sauce, 1 teaspoon cayenne pepper, 1 tablespoon Dijon mustard, 2 tablespoons prepared horseradish. The 2 garlic cloves I'm going to zest on a microplane. I'm zesting in the garlic because I don't want to have to run that food processor too long in order to break the garlic down, as it'll dull out all the colors. 1 lemon is going to get fully zested into the food processor. Careful not to get down to that white pith part. Also, we're going to juice the entire lemon. I'm using a fine mesh strainer to catch any pulp and seeds. Freshly squeezed lemon juice is the way to go. This will equate to about 2 to 3 tablespoons. This lemon is also room temperature, which results in the most juice. Now we're going to pulse the food processor a few times just to break up all those ingredients before we drop in 3 sticks of unsalted butter that is very soft. That equates to 1.5 cups. Let the food processor rip for about 10 to 15 seconds to fully incorporate all the ingredients. You might have to stop the food processor to scrape the sides down every once in a while to make sure all of those ingredients get mixed into the butter. Hit it with 1 tablespoon of salt, freshly cracked black pepper, about 10 turns worth on the pepper mill. Let the food processor rip once again to incorporate all that seasoning. Once all those ingredients are fully incorporated, you end up with a beautifully looking butter. Give the butter a taste to make sure you don't need to adjust the seasoning. Once it's perfect, place the butter onto some parchment paper. We're essentially going to roll it into a log shape. This will make it easier for you to take slices off the compound butter. Use a rubber spatula to smooth out the butter and spreading it out lengthwise on the parchment paper. This is going to make it a whole lot easier to roll the butter up into the log shape. So once the butter is smoothed out, tightly roll up the butter in the parchment paper. Twist the ends of the parchment paper. It's going to help keep everything in place. Once it's formed into that log shape, place this in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours to set. Now for pan searing this sirloin, I'm going to warm up a cast iron pan on medium-high heat just until the point of it starting to smoke. This is roughly an 8-ounce piece of sirloin that is room temperature. I'm going to heavily salt and pepper both sides. Make sure to pat the steak dry on both sides before you do add any kind of seasoning. Don't worry, the seasoning will stick perfectly fine to the steak. No seasoning gets left behind, nor any side of the steak gets left unseasoned. So roll the steak around on the plate to get fully seasoned. You really don't need to do a whole lot to the sirloin to make it taste delicious. So once the cast iron pan is visibly smoking, drop in 2 tablespoons of oil. Very carefully place in that sirloin to pan sear on each side for about 2.5 minutes. I'm looking to get a beautiful caramelized crust on the outside of it. That is beautiful flavor. Pan sear the other side for about 2.5 minutes. Now I'm going for a medium rare steak. If you want your steak cooked a little bit longer, you can add about a minute and a half per side to bring it up to the next temperature. Of course, we want to pan sear the sides of the steak. No side of the steak is left unseared. Searing the sides of the steak should only take 20 to 30 seconds. Once the steak is almost to the cooking temperature that you want it to be, drop in 2 cloves of garlic to the pan, a sprig of fresh rosemary, a sprig of fresh thyme, really whatever kind of herbs that you have, 2 tablespoons unsalted butter, and now we're going to baste the top of the steak with the butter. I place the herbs on top of the steak and just keep basting the steak. That's going to flavor the butter while we're basting, perfuming flavor onto the steak. The herbs have these beautiful oils in them, and as you're basting the hot butter on top of the herbs, it's extracting that oil, flavoring the steak. This part should really take only 30 to 40 seconds, as you don't want to overcook your steak. Let the steak rest on a plate, placing the melted butter, the rosemary, and the garlic on top of the steak and let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes before attempting to cut into it. Delicious cast iron pan seared sirloin steak served with this beautiful Cowboy compound butter. Soften the butter up, smear it on top of the steak. Also, you can melt it down like I said and use it as a dipping sauce. Fantastically delicious.